Now, people have been asking about the two worlds. This next piece I did back last year, and it not only wraps up the two worlds, it also involves the 4-year loop, which we've referenced earlier in this show. So I thought I would go over that piece again, and you'll see when it was put out 12 months ago how much of it has developed since. And this will be the final piece tonight. And it's also got a bit of intel from then. Some people forget it at certain times. Now, occasionally I get what I call downloads of information. It's either from my higher self or another aspect of my own multi-dimensionality aspect. I have no idea at this point. But this next piece of information that was last year comes in two parts that may or not be connected. And as always, I put at that time will tell. For thousands of years, our sun has been interfered with and possibly switched out for an alternate version that was not conducive to our life force here. The sun, as some may or may not know, is a portal that allows things through and into this system and allows things out to other portal suns to wherever that destination is, like a gateway. Now, last year we had the solar eclipse, and that triggered some events on a real bigger picture scale. They, of course, have tried to interfere with that process, and like everything else they do, it fails, and we have progressed onwards. Now, in the past, in November of last year, a crystalline orb, which is a power pack that had been missing from our original sun for a long time, had been removed and held underground. For how long, I'm not sure at this point. And as I understand it, it was recovered and returned to the sun's core. So what can we derive from this is that aspect of the restoration here is now completed, and with the new organic sun, prospects for organic life and systems should improve dramatically, but there were no timescales forwarded at that time. So the sun and the planets are now fully or very close to being fully restored. Now, scientists and people on the Discovery Channel think they were at a loss as to why the sun currently isn't doing what they think it should do. A lack of sunspots, solar minimum and maximum now awry, and the 11-year cycle, interesting number, is way off their charts. Why? Because they don't now all realise the composition of our sun has changed and the old paradigm models no longer work. That has become more obvious in the 12 months since. In fact, much of their old paradigm science models will no longer work either, as time will show. Again, that's been borne out in the last 12 months. With the sun fully re-established means the way home is now on the horizon, whatever that home may be for each of you. It may also trigger a series of beneficial groups below our feet to help us. That has been borne out also. So the big question then was, and most were asking, why does it all look like hell in a handbasket? Well, because we haven't chosen to be the change we wish to see is why. Most think it's outside of their responsibility or outside of their capabilities, but here's the kicker and the mind blower. What if all we are seeing is not happening on our world, but theirs? This is to do with the two worlds, and I first put it forward roughly late summer of 2016. Now, initially some thought it was far-fetched, and that's understandable, but as time has gone on, and more of the symptoms of the synopsis have been revealing themselves at a rapid pace, perhaps people are thinking again. Well, the two worlds is now reaching a rapid pace and getting more strange by the day, and this is literally two worlds side by side that occasionally interact with each other, but is mainly bred through by the portal people, which is the media. They're telling you their news in their world, not ours. That's why it doesn't make sense. I mentioned about the separation of the two worlds. This was witnessed and subsequent confirms have been received since. And what we are witnessing now is the echo of events being played out, but it's not real. Certainly not in their world anyway. The old world is buzzing through to this world its negative and psychotic frequencies to overlay into our world, and that nothing has changed, but everything's changed. Now the issue is the residual resonance of those frequencies still lingers on like last week's curry. The curry has gone, but the smell remains. That's why some people still think there's the veil, there's a simulation, there's a matrix. It's gone. The magnetic field, which scientists started telling you 2 years ago was breaking down, the reason they were telling you it is because it was gone. That was the matrix. It's what held it together. And this is symbolic of the residual frequencies that are still around to tune in with your memory set, and also due to programming set memory. But once you recognize your own knowing and learn to counteract those frequencies by non-consent, those frequencies for you will cease to exist, and more elements of the real organic world will bleed through into your reality. I think most people who listen to this now understand that more 12 months later. It's what's played out. Here are some of the examples. We've all seen the images of strange cities appearing on the skyline. All witnessed the increase in synchronicities, coincidences, the Mandela effect. All remember now certain people dying, only to be told they've died again. All have witnessed major events with large casualties, and yet very few appear to be actually dead. 2 different events, 2 worlds. Even the Sandy Hook records for the month of that event showed up as 0 deaths or homicides for that county for that month in the FBI database. Why? Because it wasn't in our world. Strange glitches appearing in front of you. Increase in orbs out of the corner of your eye, for those that linger for 2 to 4 seconds. Buildings going missing when driving one way, but reappearing when you drive back. A Nazi base, full-on German Nazi base, appeared in the middle of Australia last year and then disappeared. And then the key one, things phase shifting in and out, both objects and people. We have false flags being reported by the AI media and the internet, and the recorded date-wise was before the actual events. Donation pages set up, again, before the events take place. FEMA turned up before 9/11. The FBI turned up before the Mandela Bay incident. This is just 2 examples. So where is all this leading to? All the events are not happening here, but on the other world. And it's being played out like a movie scene in this world. Disaster drills being turned out as real events, and they are actually replays of what happened in the other world, whose time is ahead of ours, which also may explain how the looking glass technology works. Who knows? Or used to work. It ended in 2012. As the event in one virtual world plays out, they repeat the event into our world to maintain the illusion of non-reality inorganic world. In essence, it's a hypnotic suggestion to entrance us into their negative world where the Nazis actually reigned supreme. That's why that base appeared. And it requires our consent to participate in their perceptual matrix bubble. Once you agree to it and align with it, it pushes you into their world of illusion. So who are the purveyors of all this? Well, I mentioned earlier about the portal people, those that operate to align the 2 worlds. For the average folk, these are your newsreaders, as it's they who deliver to you what they want you to know or believe. And the vast majority, in fact, maybe all of these so-called people may be clones or the generative adversarial networks which work to manufacture people, cloning facilities. Now, there was a video put out last year that is supporters of this hypothesis. Also around 12 and 18 months ago, someone on the internet did a photo page of many of the newsreaders around America. In fact, that was posted again this week. And remarked how similar they all looked. Blonde, just past shoulder length hair, straight with a hair part on the right hand side. Look for yourselves, it's all there. They're all reading the same script. Is this cloning synthetic or a computer generated vessel to read out the news? Big question to ask. Now, at this time when I wrote this, I've mentioned about synthetics, and my opinion has slightly changed on this. I still think there is an element of synthetic, but not all. And to add to the general mind effery of and reinforce the illusion of that their world, synthetics were added into mix to make everything inorganic look like normal, to uphold the status quo, making our lives more hectic, chaotic, stressful, filled with angst and frustration. Now, one of the many things that puzzle me with the increase in phones with cameras is why there's hardly anyone meeting any of the so-called famous people and taking a picture. Nobody asked that question. The internet, everyone loves taking a picture with famous people. Oh, I was with blah blah. The internet should be flooded of pictures of the famous in shops, restaurants, theatres, bars, airports and vacation places, and yet hardly anyone sees these people. Why? Well, maybe they're not part of our world either. But they're satanic and cult-like groups and rituals, and all kinds of other reported debauchery, all of which at the time of writing this appears to go unchecked. Not no more it doesn't. Over a number of years now, we've heard the term ascension bandied about. In fact, Mr. Wilcock told us he was all ascending on December the 21st, 2012. No ifs or buts about it. And yet it never happened. Why? Because the perception was we were getting airlifted off the planet by some flavour of the day ET. Ascension's not about going on a tin craft. It's a change in frequency, mindset and vibration. Now, bearing in mind this was back in 2012, and this date was known as -2 BC, as in 2 years before the blue chickens, not before Christ. What if we've already ascended, but not in ships, biospheres, or carted off the planet by some archangels, but ascended enough in our own consciousness to bring about the return of the organic world and life that humans had long before interference by psychotic AIs, Draco, bug-eyed bastards, Greys, Abraxans, and the often overlooked and undernamed group, who are possibly the worst type of skullduggery, were the humanoid Aldazani. All of those, like the cabal here, are control freaks, but also a collection of very weak species, as only the weak formed in a collective wish to control others. All of them are frightened of our capabilities and chose to entrap us here within this construct system, so they remain kings or gods or solar beings in their own tiny, insecure minds. I remember writing in CV, and I've mentioned this on the show several times, that on January the 1st, 2018 was the end of their game. But what they did do was loop a cheat on us by adding 4 years up to December 31st, 2016. But in reality, their stall for more time ended in the summer of 2015. Then it was a case of monitoring between then and the end of 16, which I then forecasted an increase in the unravelling. The highlights where many will be exposed. This was back in 2016. Some who are thought to be good are not. Some who are thought to be bad are not either. News will come at us from all angles, and much will be disclosed as we are nearing the back of this year. 2 years on, I think that those predictions have been borne out. Essentially, what we've been on is a stair-step of awareness across a broad spectrum of fields, and I would like to think this show has prepared you all fairly well for it. But let's look at the main aspects of life here and how things are changing due to the precipitous rise in awareness. The political illusion, not just in America but everywhere, is collapsing in on itself. Politicians being caught out with fraud, corruption, collusion, sex crimes, treason and crimes against humanity. All are now being more exposed than ever, and essentially that field is collapsing in on itself. So much so that many now are starting to see through the illusion and don't vote, and also railing against their politicians in many countries around the world, particularly France. But the illusion was that politicians are there to look after the country and, more importantly, its people. The reality is they do neither. And the real reason is we have no organic constitution or real American government is because we, the organic souls, have not stepped into it and reclaimed it yet. And the fix for this is we, the people, step up and into those roles. Like I said, this was mentioned 12 months ago. Currently we have no candidates, only those provided for us, and the illusion of voting for their candidates will eventually phase out, providing we step up and into those roles. And most importantly, not repeat the mistakes and the ways they did. A new way of government that doesn't create war for profit, in fact works to eliminate war, doesn't sign off people's rights, spend over to society's greed merchants, rapes the country and the people of the wealth, but uses every accountable cent towards providing a better life, not just an existence for all the people. And this was something that was mentioned earlier. Like I said, this piece is from 12 months ago, and we're seeing it all play out. Religions, again, like politicians, exposed on a massive scale, add in their worship of the Draco Lord, that is Anu, and their ritual sacrifice, sexual criminality, child trafficking, and their illusionary bubble of religion is beneficial to the people. That illusion bubble has clearly been popped to the reality of what it is: a control system, a illusion of your energy in churches largely situated on ley lines for maximum output by getting you to worship their Lord or God, Anu. I imagine a lot of people, when they find that out, that they've been worshipping what was essentially a lizard, will not sit too well with many people. They also worship the fake solar beings as well. This is the real meaning of God, these people. They're not source. Look at the word solar. Given inorganic sun has a mirror effect. Sol means sun, and the mirror version of Ra, you have Ra. Ra, god of the sun. My ass is. Ra is also known as Marduk, and it's another one of the titles the Anunnaki gave to each other that made them feel so self-important that they should be worshipped by humans, who they see as inferior, and essentially they have played the role of God, not source, a fake illusionary version. And as said back then, it will be a difficult transition phase on this particular subject, but as more of the truth reveals, as more of the people gain a more spiritual outlook, the desire to seek outside of yourself, which is what religion promotes, will be rendered mute. Given the intel tonight, that ties in rather well. More have desired to seek inside of themselves, not external. And the reality is, which is another meme for this show, people only love God or gods when they have failed to remember their own connection to source. The person who asked, is there a difference between source and God? There's your answer.